Had to talk a little bit about kind of where our Bears are at. That's not a good thing always. But at least here, I get to have a little bit of fun with a couple of guys that do a great job of really putting us in a good position, fantasy-wise, week in and week out. Got to bring in the team. As always, the Fantasy Whisperers. Welcome into the show, Johnny, Game Time Hicks, and Big Travie.
What's going on,
boys?
How
you boys doing today?
Oh, we're doing good, man. We're doing good. Obviously, we were talking a little bit off air about some injuries, major injuries to Christian McCaffrey. I hate to rub some salt on the wound there to you,
but you're
Pat,
gonna do it, is what you.
But I got to do it because look, you got to train the people to be like water. Your guy gets hurt, you got to move on. You got to adapt. This is a brutal game. You know this. You cover the Bears. It's a brutal, violent game, and so we're gonna get some injuries. We're gonna get people going down, and we got to get to those waivers and get them right.
Absolutely. A little Packers dig from you there as well. I saw that. Good.
Yeah,
you covered all of your bases there. It hurts, let me tell you. No, listen, definitely here to talk some fantasy. I mean, we pretty much started it off with the Christian McCaffrey news. Let's jump right into it. As always, guys, like the video, subscribe to the page, and if you have fantasy questions, send them into the chat. We'll get them on the screen, get them answered by the Fantasy Whisperers live on air. We're going to be on here for about a half hour. So we really want to get as many questions in as possible. But for those people like me, and I think Johnny, you had them as well.
Yep.
How should people go into this week managing Christian McCaffrey? Is Christian McCaffrey somebody that is going to be done? Is this a week to week? Is this I got to let this guy sit on here just in case he comes back? What are you guys seeing out of Christian McCaffrey right now?
You want me to go? I'll go first here. What I'm seeing here's the thing with Christian McCaffrey. I'm kind of on the border. Big Travie and I have talked about this a couple of times because the injury that he is dealing with is a hamstring injury. Those are very finicky. We know that they can flare up, and you could be feeling 100%.
Yeah.
Go out there, and then it flares up again, and you're right back to square one. So I'm kind of on the border here. I think if you are starting off, 1-2 or 0-3 in some leagues, you might be 0-3, and you need to trade Christian McCaffrey right now in order to get some pieces. His name is still going to get you a fair amount of value, even though he's out. But as far as picking up a guy, if you have the number one waiver wire priority, or you have FOB budget to spend, and Chuba Hubbard is available, I think that's the route you go first, or you try to attempt to go that route first before giving up CMC. But there are some question marks when he comes back, certainly dealing with that injury.
Yeah, and I think just to add to his point, Pat, like, you don't have to drop CMC. If you don't have that IR spot, let's make sure you're selling him to contenders, 3-0 teams, 2-1 teams that are willing to make a deal with you and give you ample value back. Because what I loved is this real team, the Carolina Panthers, did not go and put CMC on the IR.
Yeah.
So that means that they don't think it's as significant as maybe a 3-week, 4-week deal. So maybe it's 1 to 2 weeks. He comes back, you're fine. I would say, like Johnny said, go get Chuba Hubbard, but don't be bailing, don't be panicking. Even if you are 0-3, 1-2, make sure you get ample value for your stud. You drafted him number 1 overall. Make sure you remember that.
Absolutely, and that's the scary part. When you see a guy who's come back from injury go down like that, it's just like, oh no, not again.
Yeah.
I mean, in my world of dealing with this, like you guys said, go out and get Chuba Hubbard if you can. This is a waiver wire week. Who are some of those guys that, listen, if you do got a CMC go down, if you're not at the top of the waiver wire, are there any of those running back names that you guys are seeing that aren't picked up heavily that maybe somebody can go out and get some good production out of?
Yeah, so I'd be looking not only at Chuba Hubbard, but Peyton Barber. And unfortunately, Peyton Barber hasn't been very good at football over the last 2 years, but he played really well against Miami. Got about 26 touches against Miami, used in the passing game as well, something we didn't even see Josh Jacobs get done with a lot in Vegas. And they, are a team that's, look at it or, believe it or not, Vegas is the number 1 offense in the league right now. So, they're amassing a lot of yards. They're getting a lot of opportunities. And I think that spells a lot of fun for those players that are on that roster. Peyton Barber, is a guy that you can go out and get. So if you miss on Chuba, you could go and pick up Peyton Barber, who's not added in a lot of leagues. If you're in deeper leagues, I like to mention Ramondre Stevenson, just because James White did get his hip hurt in this last game, probably going to be out for a while, if not the whole year. Yeah. And we have seen this team kind of gradually stop using Damian Harris as the bell cow and start to mix in other guys. So Ramondre could be active. He has been a healthy scratch. He did fumble in week 1. There's a lot of risk with Ramondre. But if you've got the bench stash space, I think Ramondre is a great ad for a guy on a team that, remember in college, Ramondre Stevenson was a very successful pass catcher out of the backfield. So I think he could be used, similarly in a James White role to start, and then maybe even more.
I would also look for J.J. Taylor as far as I think that he was most likely to get that James White role. We'll see, though. Like Travis said, it's Belichick, so it depends on where he wakes up in the morning and where he wants to roll out his. But they do also have a difficult matchup coming up against Tampa Bay, so that's also a difficult matchup there.
Absolutely, and I think the confusing part right now, especially with what we're seeing at the running back position, there's some guys that are on a team that you're like, hey, should I trust that this guy's going to keep going? Should I trust that this guy's going to – is he now the starter? Is he not? What are you guys seeing out of a Sony Michel, able to get a little bit more carries due to a little bit of injury ahead of him, but does he continue being the starting back going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how he wouldn't be at this point. He ran the ball 20 times against a tough defense. Looked fine in that game, didn't do a lot, but Henderson is a guy that this team has told us in a lot of different ways that they don't really trust. He hasn't stayed healthy himself. They went out and got Cam Akers the year after they drafted Henderson. And then this year they went and traded for Sony Michel right after Henderson got hurt with the thumb. So I think they know what they were trying to do here. One thing that's interesting to note, I mean, it didn't really amount to anything. Jake Funk got the first carry in this game.
Yeah, that was wild.
It was kind of a weird ceremonial.
Like, oh no!
Dude. I was so concerned.
Yeah, I know. We told people to start him too on Sunday in their lineups, and then seeing that, I was like, what have we done?
Yeah, but that was the only carry he got all game.
Yeah,
so that ended up to even itself out. I don't know what that was. If it was just like Sony had a bad practice week and they said, look, at any point we can get another guy in here. And again, only 3.3 yards per carry in that game, but he was facing a very tough Tampa front. Still ended up with 10 points in PPR. You like to see that, 4 targets, 3 receptions. So yeah, I don't think there's anything really to make them go back to Henderson, although McVay was quoted saying he's hopeful we get Henderson back this week. So I think, at the very least, they'll run a tandem for the next couple of weeks, and one of those guys will get an opportunity to kind of, cement themselves as the new leader. Arizona, Seattle, and the Giants up next before Detroit. So few good matchups sprinkled in between some tougher ones.
Absolutely. Let's get to some of these questions that the guys are asking in the chat. We got them in the chat. We might as well see what they're talking about. First thing here, who's the better waiver option? Brian Edwards, James Conner, or Tim Patrick? Looking at the waiver wire early here. What do you guys think out of that?
I think Tim Patrick here. I think Big Travie would agree as well. Tim Patrick looking like a solid wide receiver 2 option flex, for you that you can get on the waiver wire. Now that KJ Hamler is also out for the season with an ACL injury, that definitely boosts, because it was originally reported he was only playing time because Jerry Jeudy went down. Well, now this gives him a more, season-long role, so he's much more viable option moving forward.
Yeah, in on 70% or more of his snaps the last 3 weeks. That's only going to go up with KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy out, and he's only dropped 1 pass, and he's not even credited with that drop. It sounds like it was on Teddy Bridgewater. So that's good news for a guy that they've been using deep. He's had 20-yard, 30-yard receptions in the last game, 3 of them. So the big plays they like to use him on, that spells good. And this Broncos offense quietly putting some great games together.
Mm-hmm. And a question there. I mean, I got this question earlier to shoot to you guys. How much should we trust Teddy Bridgewater to keep playing the way he's playing? I mean, he's one of those guys that we've seen be good. We've seen be bad. We've seen be the guy that just keeps a team afloat. Can you trust Teddy in fantasy moving forward this season?
Hey, Steady Teddy should be his new nickname because that's what he is. I'm telling you, that's like he's not super sexy, but he's going to get the job done and he's going to be efficient at it. And, it dates back to, and Travis doesn't like me bring this up, but I really believe this is why they went with Teddy Bridgewater, was because they're trying to allure and show how good their team can be to Aaron Rodgers this year and say, hey, see what we did with Teddy Bridgewater? Imagine if we got you behind center, and then what can we do? So I do think this is a big ploy. I do think Teddy Bridgewater continues to be a safe option for you.
Nothing would make me happier, by the way. I'm just saying,
I'm sure it would. I'm sure it would.
About the division.
Yeah.
Here's a good question here. Should I trade Diggs and CEH for Chubb, Pittman, and Sanders?
Is it Emmanuel Sanders?
Yeah, is it
Emmanuel Sanders?
Yeah, I would guess so, because you're taking the upgrade at running back to take the downgrade from Diggs.
Also, is this PPR?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm doing this deal. And the reason I'm not is because I can't trust Pittman and that offense, because, I mean, look, we saw Carson Wentz try to play quarterback last week on 2 bum ankles, and it was not a pretty sight. Emmanuel Sanders is somebody interesting, and I think he's a high waiver ad this week. I think you grab him for the upside, but he's not somebody I'm going to go and start to trade for immediately right now. Even if CEH has a floor lower than we thought, he still has a similar ceiling to what we thought each week, as long as he can get the volume each week, and that'll be up and down. And the problem with Chubb is that, yes, I love Chubb. He's a great runner. He's going to get his. He's never going to get to the number 1 overall, I believe, in fantasy because of Kareem Hunt's existence. Now, should Hunt go down, then we'd have that going on. And Diggs I think is an opportunity now to, buy low. So if you're the one selling Diggs away, I think you're on the wrong end of that right now.
Yeah, I would try. I mean, trying to sell away CEH right now, sell him high. I do think that is the right move, but I wouldn't throw Diggs in there as well. I think Travis hit it right there on the head.
Absolutely. Here's a question from the Twitterverse here. Should I trust Logan Thomas to keep moving forward, or do I go with Gerald Everett with the better quarterback?
Well, I mean, don't sleep on Tyler Heineke, man. The guy's good. The guy's been making big-time throws, and he keeps this offense afloat for the most part. Now, he had a tough matchup against Buffalo, but Logan Thomas still getting it done for them. This is a guy, Heineke's scored 20 or more points. He made the waiver column this week for me, because he scored 20 or more points in all 3 games that he's been, the starter. So I think Logan Thomas is just fine. And Everett, just not seeing the volume we want to see, not on the field enough as much as Logan Thomas, who's one of the highest snap shared in all tight ends. So, it's a little tough for me to want to get out of Logan Thomas right now.
Their schedule opens up quite significantly over these next couple weeks.
Yeah, I think especially just seeing kind of how Washington is Washington a little bit like Denver in the fact that, listen, we're going to lean on this defense as much as we can. We're going to keep it simple with this offense. You might see a week where it is, a high touchdown performance, but you also might see a week where we're coming out, we're going to do just enough to get by and try and scrape out the win.
I mean, if Washington's defense is like you're trying to lean up, that's not a good trust fall right now, because they're letting you down each and every single week. I do think there are probably better days ahead for this defense, but man, it looks like a shell of itself from last year. But Denver, on the other hand, I do think that defense is for real. I do think that they'll continue to lean on that for Denver.
Let's ask you guys this. Who is your number 1 guy to go after in these waiver wires this week? If you do have the number 1, you're coming off, you're an 0-3 team, you're just trying to figure out how to stabilize yourself. Who's that guy that you think helps a team get themselves back in the right situation off the waiver wires this week?
Well, it has to be Chuba Hubbard right now. I mean, he had 14 touches, over 4.7 yards per carry, had about a 9-yard per catch average, and that was only playing 55% of the snaps, just a partial game because of Christian McCaffrey going down. He's going to get Dallas this week. Then Philly, who we thought was a good run defense, just saw Zeke and the boys kind of run all over him on Monday night. And then Minnesota. So a couple porous defenses, or defenses that are banged up. And Chuba, should he be there instead, could help you rattle off a couple wins that you desperately need right now while CMC is out. So, I think even if you are, kind of set at RB, but you need a flex, I think Chuba Hubbard's going to be one of the better flexes, RB2 range this week, and can really help your team right away.
And I think also to add on that, if you grab him and you are 0-3, try to pair him and get a trade. Like I do think that you'll be able to use him over the next couple of weeks. He'll be very serviceable. But if you can take advantage of, like, this is one of those opportunities you could really take advantage, pick him up, pair him with, maybe another wide receiver and really try to level up for a whole season long value as opposed to just for the next couple of weeks or so.
Absolutely. We got a question in here from Alfred. I'm not even going to try that last name, bro. And I got a crazy last name. I'm not even going to mess with you. Do I trade Tony Pollard for Zach Moss in Dynasty? It's full PPR. What do you think?
Absolutely not. I would keep on to Tony Pollard. I think you could get a lot better back for Tony Pollard. We're going to watch, maybe it's not this year. Zeke looked a little bit better on Monday night, but there will be a time eventually, either via free agency or via Zeke injury or via Zeke leaving, that Tony Pollard will get his time. And right now, one of the highest graded running backs in the league right now per Pro Football Focus is Tony Pollard. He's got receiving upside. He is an all-around elusive back. Zach Moss has just not got it done, whether it's injury or ineffectiveness or offense. You just don't like what you're seeing out of Zach Moss right now. Maybe in redraft he gets something down the line, but I wouldn't give up Tony Pollard for Zach Moss here, not without some great picks compensation back on the other end too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Especially in a dynasty too.
Yeah.
Here we go. Now we're getting in the quarterback trouble room. Says that right now his starting quarterback's Jimmy Garoppolo. Not bad. Not great, but not bad. Says, should I swap out Jimmy G to go after Sam Darnold on waivers?
Yeah, I would do that. I would do it immediately because you get Sam Darnold against Dallas this week. Now, I will say that Dallas over the last 6 quarters or so has looked pretty good on defense, but they're still going to be a team that puts points on the board on the offensive side, which causes your team to go and play in catch-up mode, which is great game script for your fantasy quarterback. And there are 2 quarterbacks in the league right now, Pat, with 3 rushing touchdowns, Kyler Murray and Sam Darnold. So I would get Sam Darnold in your lineup right now and get him over there over Jimmy G, who – they're bringing Trey Lance in the red zone right now. They're messing with Jimmy G in a lot of different ways that are just it's capping his upside in a big way if he had it.
That's the craziest thing about it. It's just like, if you are an owner of Jimmy G, first off, you waited a little too long to get the quarterback, in my opinion. Because if you were an owner of Jimmy G, that's a bad day anyway. But the thing that I see going into it is you can't trust that he's going to get those shots in the red zone. I mean, how does that affect what you're trying to do when you've got that quarterback on your team that is getting pulled out consistent? We're seeing it more now too with these younger guys.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and it's not a great position to be in. We had to do it in a super flex league. Big Trav and I had to do it with Dalton and Fields, and it was a risky gamble, and it's not a fun thing to play with. But yeah, you try to look for something a little bit more solid where you're not having to worry about that issue.
And, beyond that, Pat, just pulling him out, they also love the run game in San Fran. So it's not like he has a ton of upside in the red zone. I mean, he did get a rushing touchdown against Philly a couple weeks ago. And when he's in game scripts and he's feeling it, he does tend to open it up a bit. They've got good wide receivers. I just don't trust him as much as I'm trusting a guy like Darnold, who seems to have a grasp on this offense, seems to be warming up and going the other direction.
Absolutely. And it is weird to see Sam Darnold just playing. So it's like, is Sam Darnold throwing dots out there right now? And now you're just thinking, so where's Zach Wilson's next team going to be?
Yeah, exactly.
Here's a question in here from Edgar. Is having Chubb and Hunt as my RB1 and 2 a good thing? Which is interesting because watching the debacle that I saw over here, there was a lot of Chubb would get a drive, Hunt would get a drive. Chubb would get a drive, Hunt would get a drive. Is that something that they're going to continue to do, or is that just, picking on my Bears defense?
I think this is what they've wanted to do since they had both of them, and since they really didn't find a suitor for Hunt in trade, that there were rumors for trades. It never really happened. Yeah. They realized they have the best running back tandem in the league. I mean, Hunt would be a starter on so many teams right now. And the bottom line is they like Hunt as a receiver. They don't need to use Chubb that much. He can still be the motor of the team, and he can still have great upside because he is one of the best running backs in the NFL, if not the best pure rusher in the NFL. And then you have Hunt in the red zone in the passing game. Yeah, I don't have any problem. This may be the one team in the league you can confidently do this with each and every week because of how much they rely on the run, and they don't need to rely on the passing game because their offensive line is great. Their defense is good. It all lines up for a very powerful rushing attack.
And their schedule is very running back friendly as well. So you they shouldn't be game scripted into a lot of games in which they would have to like not use one of those running backs.
Absolutely. Here's a good one. Can I trust Justin Herbert to come back? Which is something that, I mean, he's been up and down. He's been questionable. That's a tough one at the quarterback position. I mean, last year going out with injury as well. That line does not do a good job of keeping him alive.
Well, Herbert's fine. Justin Herbert, right? That's what we're talking about.
Justin
Yeah,
Herbert, yep.
he's fine. I don't believe he got injured. They played him to the wire there against Kansas City. I think maybe the comeback was that he actually scored a decent amount of points here, and that he had some down weeks. And I think that's what maybe the question is about. If we're wondering if the comeback is sustainable, and I think it was. I think what we saw actually in the first 2 weeks, over 330 yards in both games, over 41 pass attempts in both games. I mean, the coach Staley didn't make any secrets here. He said, we're going to throw the S out of the ball. He said it from the beginning, and that's what they've done. And both wide receivers playing excellent right now, both catching over 100 yards a game. And I think there's a situation here where Herbert just is going to continue to do that. Why would they not? They don't have a for real, third down or all around running back right now. They have their guy Eckler, who catches balls out of the backfield, but he's definitely not their goal line back. They're like first and second down grinder. So I think they rely on the pass game. They relied on Herbert. And I actually think that he's set up to have, some big games down the stretch here.
I am seeing Herbert is questionable, but I'm not really seeing what he's questionable for.
Had his throwing hand wrapped and iced before he left the stadium, but he's expected to be okay.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, there is concern. I mean, this schedule is not pretty. You got the Raiders, who their defense is improved, the Browns, then the Ravens, who their defense has struggled about, Patriots, Eagles, Vikings, Steelers, Broncos. Like, there's some difficult. We did also expect some regression.
Cleveland and Denver in there are probably the only ones I'm really worried about. The other teams like Minnesota, New England, Baltimore, Steelers just keep getting scored on, man. Cincinnati just had their way with them. I mean, it's like
Listen, as a Mixon owner, I love it.
Yeah. Part of that was like Ben was turning over the ball at like the 30-yard line. But
I don't think that's gonna stop. Like Ben looks bad, dude.
Ben is looking old.
Yeah, he does look bad. But I don't know if that necessarily keeps going in that direction. I do think, like I said, I got a lot of flack for this because I did think that he was going to regress this season, and everyone was projecting him to be top 5. So if the question is in regards to, do I think Herbert can bounce back to be a top 5 quarterback? I don't think he'll get there. But do I think he'll have better days than what he's been showing over the last couple of weeks? I do. I agree with Travis on that. No.
Well, after a big game, he's like the 12th best QB. So better than that would,
that's right where I have him in my rankings.
Top 10, top 8, maybe even top 5, Johnny. So we'll see.
I had him
he's definitely gonna have. Yeah, I mean, he's had 2 games where his receivers dropped touchdowns and they had offensive penalties in the red zone against Dallas. I think there's a lot of things at play here that really set the Chargers up for success. They had injuries in their secondary against Kansas City. That could be something to watch, because then if teams are jumping up on them, they'll have to come back. They're going to have Vegas on Monday night. I think that's an opening line of like over 50 right now for, per the desert. Like they're going to be in a lot of games like that where the over-under is around 50 or more. And I'll be wanting to invest in that offense.
Let me ask you this. Here's a good question. What should I expect from Antonio Brown coming back? Now, he is supposed to come back from COVID-19 protocol, but he kind of looked like, I don't know how Tom Brady picks his receivers. He pretty much just goes, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, you get the ball today. Didn't get a lot of looks in that last game that he was able to play in. That was week 2 versus let me see the game log on them.
Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta. The Rams game is the one where he didn't get a lot of looks on that one. Week 3. What should am I reading that right?
Well, he was out for COVID.
He was out for the Rams game.
Yeah.
Atlanta, yes.
And then
Atlanta.
he still didn't get a lot of looks there.
Yeah.
But week 1 looked great. I mean, it's hard to say with AB. I don't think as long as the lungs are okay, that's a big thing.
Yeah,
obviously,
that's a big one.
We saw some stuff with Cam that was weird. Zeke at the beginning of last year that was kind of weird. If AB comes back and he's healthy, I mean, CeeDee Lamb looks great. He came back from COVID looking fine right now. I would say that, as long as he comes back and looks good, we're going to be all right. I've held him in all leagues, put him on the IR because that special connection is there. Tom Brady loves Antonio Brown. And we actually saw that in the 8 games that these 3 played together, talking Godwin, Evans, and Brown, that it was Brown and Evans that tied for targets with, the most in that span in those 8 games. So he definitely has an affinity towards Antonio Brown, and watch Gronk's injury, because if Gronk, can't go a couple games, that'll definitely be an uptick for guys like Brown.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question from a P1 on the show, Tana. Listen, you guys don't even have to answer this one. Yes. He says, should I get rid of Jimmy Graham from my bench? Yes. Matt Nagy does not believe in using tight ends anymore, apparently. I think I saw that Cole Kmet and Jimmy Graham were both used like 14% of the time or something like that. So it's not pretty over there. What we got going on here in Chicago.
Kmet was one of the better tight end prospects coming out of the draft. It was a great landing spot for him. And like you said, all of a sudden it was like, Nagy was like, I'm going to get rid of all my tight end plays, even though like that was a quarter of my playbook. I don't know.
I don't know. And I had a Chicago fan come into the bar that I work at, Pat, and he told me that he believes Nagy is trying to limit either not play Fields or limit the playbook with Fields so that he can buy another year on his deal, right? So you can buy another year as the coach by selling hope at the end of the year, opening up the playbook a little more at the end of the year, making Fields look a little bit better. And I just wonder, like, why would you even do that? But maybe that's just how paranoid and upset you Bears fans are. You've got all these conspiracy theories, but I'm just wondering, Pat, what do you think is going on with Nagy and the play calling?
Well, I think as far as play calling goes with this, the problem comes in with, first things first, he's just not good at it. We've seen him not be able to. The biggest thing is, listen, your first 15 can look amazing. I've seen a lot of coaches have their first 15 look amazing. The problem comes
look at the Giants. Look at the Giants' first 15. They always look amazing, and then it goes downhill after that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he absolutely comes in and dominates. There's no better quarterback in the league right now than Daniel Jones in the first 15.
I know. Exactly, dude.
But the problem that the Bears are having play calling wise is that they don't adjust based off what the defense is doing. There's no tight end chips. There's no help with the offensive line. There's not much of an offensive line there when you have Myles Garrett coming at 39-year-old Jason Peters. He's a Hall of Famer. We said on the show yesterday, we have no problems with you, Jason. You can come here anytime that you're a large person. But the problem is that there's no adjustment in the play calling, and fantasy wise, that just hurts the entire team. Like, there's no point in putting Jimmy Graham out there, because when you see it, you're running no twin tight end sets in the red zone, and those are your 2 biggest guys.
Right. I'm worried about Allen Robinson right now. Like, I just don't know. I'm worried about Justin Fields and his progression if they're not going to try and tailor this offense. Like, I think there was only 3 designed bootleg runs for him in that game, 2 or 3. Yeah. And that's unacceptable when you have a guy who's known for his legs and his wheels right now, how you're not, tailoring. I mean, look at what Baltimore did. They took the bye and they revamped the entire offense around Lamar Jackson. Greg Roman became the guy that made this offense about Lamar Jackson, and they've consistently done that. So, maybe if Lamar lands in another spot, he doesn't get the chance he wants, and I just wonder if that could happen to Fields. And really, I'm invested around Fields heavily in fantasy, and if he doesn't start showing up, I don't want to have to cut bait on a guy that could be a league winner.
Yeah, he's gonna be one of those players that I think is gonna have to be a Deshaun Watson situation where, literally we saw tight ends blocking for him, and then all of a sudden, the cream just ended up rising to the top. Yeah. It's gonna have to be that he's gonna have to overcome Nagy's incompetence. And I think that, and here's a question, I guess, coming into Chicago. Should I trust Quintez Cephas to bounce back versus the Chicago Bears? He went in, what do we got? 6 targets week 1, 7 targets week 2, and then 1 target week 3. Is that somebody that bounces back in the fantasy world versus my Chicago Bears? Which, listen, if you want to see a guy bounce back, this is the team.
Yeah, I'd be more interested in TJ Hawkinson bouncing back against the Bears this week. He only had 1 point in fantasy last week. He's a guy I'm going to trust, more than anybody else pretty much on Detroit other than DeAndre Swift. And I just think that every week at the wide receiver position, Detroit is probably going to alternate some new name in there every week as the leading receiver based on matchups that they can exploit. I think for me, it's TJ Hawkinson. It's in the passing game, and it's the backs. It's DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams who they use most of the time in the passing game more than anybody else.
Here's a good question. Just like you said, should I start TJ Hawkinson or Logan Thomas at tight end this week, looking at the matchups?
Yeah, I think it's Hawkinson for me.
Yeah, I would go.
Yeah, I know it's tough right now with Hawkinson after the 1 point. It probably killed you. I know I talked a lot about Logan Thomas being on the field a lot, but I'll tell you right now, TJ Hawkinson has a chance to be top 3, top 5 tight end this year, and that's not really within Logan Thomas's ceiling. And that's just because, like we said, Hawkinson is going to be the main vein for this passing attack. They're going to continue to feed him the rock.
Yep.
Absolutely, man. Listen, before we let you guys get out of here, man, we appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us as well. Before we let you guys get out of here, what is the move this week? The number one fantasy whispers move. Is it Chuba Hubbard? That's the number one fantasy whispers move on the waiver wire, because the waiver wire is coming down on the trade. What is the one move you guys see that's going to change a team?
Well, the number one move is to go over to our YouTube channel and hit subscribe and make sure you got us there, the Fantasy Whispers on YouTube, and we'll help you throughout the week. We've got some great shows lined up for you Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all the way up to Sunday when we answer all your lineup questions an hour and a half before kickoff. Yeah, and Pat, just to bring that home, we did, Chuba Hubbard, number one waiver wire ad this week, but again, if Peyton Barber's sitting there and you're looking for some RB depth, I think he's another guy you can swoop up and hopefully start with some good some good confidence come Monday night.
See, I like that. I like that. You see how I was setting that up for you, and you just came.
I loved it.
That's what I'm talking about. That's professionalism right there. No, we appreciate you boys from tuning in. Like they said, man, make sure to check them out over on the Fantasy Whispers YouTube page. That's how we end up linking up, man. I mean, finding out all the great stuff, all the great advice. Listen, make sure to check them out on Twitter as well if you guys have any questions going into the week, at Johnny_GameTime, and of course at Big Travie TFW. Get in tune with the boys. Hey boys, we appreciate y'all for tuning in and with us. Okay,
appreciate you, Pat. You guys have a good one.
Y'all stay safe out there, everybody.
You too, bro.
Peace.
This week, peace.